Ambassador Zexathani stood in the pristine white corridor of the human diplomatic vessel, her forearms trembling with barely contained frustration. The Galactic Council had spent 3 standard cycles preparing for this moment, humanity's formal introduction to the greater cosmic community. Everything had been calculated, analyzed, and optimized for success. Everything except the small human child who had just wandered into the most important meeting in galactic history, carrying what appeared to be a furry quadruped. "I apologize, Ambassador," said Director Chen, the human diplomat rushing after the child. "Sarah, you can't be here right now." "But Mr. Whiskers wants to meet the aliens too," the child protested, clutching the creature tighter. The animal, a cat according to their briefings, regarded the assembled alien dignitaries with golden eyes that seemed far too intelligent for a non-sentient species. Zexathani's vocal sacs inflated with annoyance. The Kethmori delegation behind her chittered in their harmonic language, while the silicon-based crystalline collective pulsed with disapproving light patterns. This was exactly the kind of chaos they'd feared from these primitive newcomers. "The child must be removed," Zexathani declared, her translator rendering her words in crisp human English. "This is a formal diplomatic proceeding between civilized species." The little human, Sarah, looked up at her with wide brown eyes. "Are you really from space? You look like a purple octopus." Several of the Kethmori delegates made sounds equivalent to gasps. In their culture, commenting on physical appearance during first meetings was grounds for immediate combat. Zexathani felt her temper rising. "Director Chen," she said coldly, "control your offspring or—" She stopped mid-sentence. The cat had somehow escaped the child's grasp and was now walking directly toward her, its tail held high in what their briefings had described as a friendly gesture. The creature stopped at her feet and began making a rhythmic rumbling sound. "He likes you," Sarah exclaimed, clapping her hands. "Mr. Whiskers only purrs for people he thinks are nice." "This is highly irregular," muttered Counselor Vexhai of the Kethmori, his translator struggling with the harmonic undertones. "The creature exhibits no proper submission protocols." The cat, as if understanding the criticism, approached the tall, insectoid Kethmori delegate and began rubbing against his lower legs. Vexhai froze, his compound eyes dilating in what Zexathani recognized as shock. "What is it doing?" Vexhai whispered. "Showing affection," Sarah said matter-of-factly. "Cats do that when they want to be friends. Don't you have friends where you come from?" The question hung in the air like a spatial anomaly. Zexathani realized with growing unease that the child had inadvertently struck at something fundamental. The Galactic Council operated on strict hierarchies, formal protocols, and clearly defined power structures. Friendship, casual, unconditional friendship, wasn't part of their diplomatic vocabulary. "Of course we have alliances," Zexathani said stiffly. "Treaties, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts. But do you have friends?" Sarah persisted. "Like, do you play together? Do you share snacks? Do you take care of each other when you're sad?" The cat had now moved on to the crystalline collective representative, somehow managing to rub against a being made of living mineral without causing harm. The crystalline entity's light patterns shifted from formal diplomatic blue to something warmer, a golden hue none of them had seen in their databases. Director Chen stepped forward, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Sarah, these are very important people from other worlds. They don't—" "Everyone needs friends," Sarah interrupted with the absolute certainty only children possessed. She looked around the room at the assembled delegates. "Don't you get lonely? Mr. Whiskers gets lonely sometimes, and that's why I always make sure he has his favorite toy and I pet him and tell him stories." As if on cue, the cat began purring louder, the sound somehow filling the sterile diplomatic space with warmth. Several of the delegates shifted uncomfortably, not with annoyance but with something else. Something they hadn't felt in decades of formal proceedings. Counselor Vexhai knelt down, his massive form folding with surprising grace. "This friendship," he said slowly, "requires no contracts? No terms of mutual benefit?" "Nope," Sarah said cheerfully. "You just have to be nice and care about each other. Like how I care about Mr. Whiskers and he cares about me and now he cares about all of you too." The cat had completed its circuit of the room and returned to Sarah, who scooped it up and planted a kiss on its head. The simple gesture of affection seemed to reverberate through the assembled delegates like a shockwave. Zexathani felt something crack inside her chest, not physically but something deeper. In all her centuries of diplomatic service, she had negotiated countless agreements, prevented wars, established trade routes, but she had never once experienced what this small human demonstrated so effortlessly. The council, she began, then stopped. The words she'd prepared about humanity's provisional membership, about the testing periods and cultural integration requirements, suddenly seemed hollow. The council, she started again, did not account for this variable. What variable? Director Chen asked nervously. Zexthani looked down at the child and her cat, both regarding her with the same open, trusting expression. Unconditional acceptance. Emotional connection without strategic benefit. Love without contract. The room fell silent except for the cat's purring. We are not prepared, Vexai said quietly, for a species that offers friendship before fear. Director Chen cleared his throat. Perhaps we should postpone— No, Zexithani said, surprising herself. She knelt down to Sarah's level, her forearms folding in what she hoped was a non-threatening gesture. Small human, would you teach us about friendship? Sarah's face lit up like a small star. Really, it's super easy. First, you have to share something you like. She held up the cat. Want to pet Mr. Whiskers? He's very soft. And so the greatest diplomatic revolution in galactic history began not with treaties or trade agreements, but with a 6-year-old girl teaching ancient alien civilizations how to pet a cat. The formal contact protocols were completely abandoned. The Council's carefully planned introduction to humanity became something unprecedented, a lesson in connection, taught by the smallest and seemingly most insignificant members of Earth's species. By the end of that day, Counselor Vexai was making what could only be described as happy chittering sounds, while the cat slept in his lap. The crystalline collective had shifted to a warm amber hue that their databases would later classify as contentment. And Ambassador Zexithani found herself smiling, actually smiling for the first time in 3 centuries. The child had broken every rule, shattered every protocol, and somehow accomplished what millennia of careful diplomacy never could. She had made them remember what it felt like to simply care about someone else. First contact hadn't fallen apart after all. It had just become something infinitely better.